go, champ. It's the champ, Shannon the Cannon Briggs, and you're watching True School Sports. Let's go, champ.
My flow, my show brought me the dough. That brought me all my fancy things. My crib, my cars, my clothes, my jewels. Look, homie, I done came up and I ain't changing. You should love it way more than you hate it. Oh, you mad? How come that you be happy I made it?
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, before we proceed any further, I wanted to give a shout out to my channel sponsor, Fighting Mad, the pound for pound kings of boxing apparel. Whether you're at the house, at the gym, or at the fights, visit Fighting Mad for all your boxing apparel needs. Now, speaking of Fighting Mad, you know, the guy that's on that Fighting Man shirt to my left, Evander the Real Deal Holyfield, he was there this weekend at the Canelo Alvarez Sergey Kovalev fight in Las Vegas, and you know, he did an interview with IFL TV, and they asked him naturally, when you interview Evander Holyfield, as I know from experience, you're gonna ask him questions that regard the heavyweight division, and they asked him about Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz, and just what Anthony Joshua has to do to rebound and perform better and win the fight. So here's what Evander Holyfield said in regards to Joshua, giving Joshua some advice. He said the following, I quote, "Of course he knows he's got to make some adjustments. Me personally, I kind of thought that Ruiz kept cornering him off. So what has he got to do? He has to get somebody who's going to put pressure on him like that. When you are the champ, you got to get a sparring partner that will put pressure on you. There is no point in getting a sparring partner who looks at you and knows that they haven't got a chance of beating you. You got to have a guy that for 3 rounds is going to try to whoop you, and then you got to have another guy who's going to try to do the same thing. I had a lot of different sparring partners, and I paid them good to try and beat me, and this is the only way you're going to be prepared for the fight." End quote. So the real deal, sounding off and letting you guys know just what it takes to win rematches. And look, this is a guy that in Holyfield that knows a thing or two about rematches. I mean, this is a guy that had rematches against BOWE, won the rematch there, had a rematch against Mike Tyson, had a rematch against Lennox Lewis. So he was not only in rematches, but massive rematches, and he was able to be successful in some of them. So with that being said, you know, I agree with him, and I think we need to look a little bit deeper at just Anthony Joshua and who he has in his camp to spar, and just how that's going to affect him going into December 7th. So this will be a detailed look of Anthony Joshua's sparring partners and camp.
To tell, I excel, then prevail. The mic is contacted, I attract clientele. My mic check is life or death, breathing a sniper's breath. I exhale the yellow smoke of Buddha through righteous steps, deep like the shining, sparkle like a diamond, sneaker Uzi on the island, and my army jacket lining hit the earth like a comet invasion. Nonsense like the Afro-Asian, half man, half a man.
Anthony Joshua brought in was none other than cruiserweight Andrew the Beast Tabiti. Now, I'm very familiar with Andrew Tabiti. Obviously, he's an American fighter. I've been watching him ever since he was a prospect on Showbox. He boxed Keith Tapia, who was another Puerto Rican prospect. In his own way, Andrew Tabiti is kind of like the cruiserweight Adrian Broner. He doesn't like to let his hands go. He's not really somebody that's comfortable working on the inside. He doesn't like working on the inside. So I'm not really sure how that's going to help Joshua either, because unless he's just different in the gym than he is under the lights, he doesn't have a high punch output, and he's not comfortable working on the inside. And these are the things I think Joshua needs to have, the qualities that his sparring partners need to have for a guy like Andy Ruiz, because Andy Ruiz is going to be looking to find him in the ring. Andy Ruiz is going to be looking to cut the distance in the ring. Andy Ruiz is going to be looking to break him down, fold him up, and stop him again in the ring. So I feel like, you know, kind of going back to what Holyfield said, you need to find the sparring partners that are going to go in there and try to whoop you, but also whoop you in a similar manner that Andy Ruiz would, so that when you get put in that position, when he puts that pressure on you and tries to bust your proverbial pipes, you'll be able to deal with it. You'll be able to throw that jab, and you'll be able to just have an answer for every question he asks of you. But Tabiti, you know, he's someone that he's not really letting his hands go. He sparred with the likes of Michael Hunter, and he's a solid fighter. He's coming off a very devastating knockout loss to Junior Dorticos. So he might even be at a stage of his career where in sparring, because you know a lot of times when you get knocked out or knocked down the way he did, you might not be as aggressive off rip, and he already wasn't that much of an aggressive fighter anyway. So I'm not really feeling that. I'm not really feeling that him bringing him into sparring either. You know, I don't think it's someone that's really going to properly get him prepared and that can mimic the style of Andy Ruiz. But that's just my 2 cents on Andrew Tabiti. Sparring partner, or one of the first sparring partners we got note of here on True School Sports that was working with Joshua in his camp was none other than heavyweight journeyman Tom Little, 10-7 with 3 KOs. Okay, now Tom was brought in to spar Anthony Joshua in preparation for this fight, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I've seen Tom Little fight. Like, I've seen his fights against Dubois, I've seen his fights against Filip Hrgovic, and I really didn't see anything in those fights that would lead me to believe that he could mimic the style of Andy Ruiz. But then when you go and you dig a little deeper with Tom, he can do a couple of things that mimic Andy Ruiz a bit. But yeah, this Tom Little, man, he's fought, you know, his last 3 fights are the fights he's gotten the most notoriety in. He fought Filip Hrgovic, got stopped. He fought Daniel Dubois, got stopped. And then he fought the big stiff idiot from Liverpool, David Price, and he got stopped. So he's not anything more than a domestic British level fighter, but I will say he is a better fighter than his 10-7 record would indicate. Tom Little also, he's no stranger to being in big fight camps with other heavyweights, big heavyweights in the UK. He's also been brought in to spar Tyson Fury, so he's worked with Fury, he's been in camp with Fury, and you know, he's someone that, listen, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Tom Little is someone that listen. He has 3 knockouts in 17 fights. He's been stopped more times than he stopped other fighters. So Tom Little, not only does he not have that much punching power, but he's a feather-fisted heavyweight. But he's got good hand speed. He knows how to move around the ring. So I could see why he's bringing him in there. But I still think Joshua probably could have found a better sparring partner. But that's one of the guys he's brought in there. Tom Little, 10-7, 3 KOs, tough journeyman, good hand speed, better than his record would indicate. But is it the kind of fighter that is gonna get you properly prepared for Andy Ruiz? I don't know. The jury's out to me on that one. There's really no way of me being able to know that either, because while I'm going off what I've seen of Tom Little under the lights, but in the gym he might be a different fighter, because sometimes you get guys who are horrible under the lights but great in the gym, and then you got guys who are great in the gym but horrible under the lights. So he might be the latter. He might be a guy who's great in the gym and horrible under the lights, or not so good under the lights. But yeah, Tom Little, he's one of the sparring partners. So not really a big fan of that, but that's one of the guys they're bringing in. The third of Anthony Joshua's sparring partners that he's getting in the ring and bringing into camp to prepare for the Andy Ruiz Jr. rematch on December the 7th in Saudi Arabia is unknown German heavyweight Alban Pervisage. I think that's how you say his name, but if I butchered his name, Albon Pervisage, 12-1 with 9 KOs. I'll be honest with you guys, this guy is a very unknown quantity at heavyweight. You know, there really isn't much out there on him. You know, he's coming up through the ranks. He's, you know, trying to make a name for himself. He just had a fight 3 days ago, and he actually took his first loss. So he's actually now 12-1. Yeah, he was 12-0 when Joshua brought him into camp. He's now 12-1 after the fact. But just looking at the limited tape we have on Mr. Albon Pervisage from Germany, he's got good hand speed. He's not the biggest of heavyweights, so he's got a similar, I guess, build in a way to Andy Ruiz. And really, I'll say this again. This is another sparring partner who you know, he has decent hand speed, so I think he's actually more suitable to mimic the style of Andy Ruiz than a guy like Tom Little or a guy like Tabiti. But I'm not feeling it because I mean, listen, I can't judge a guy, I don't know him, but it's just not something I'm a big fan of him fighting Albon Pervisage or sparring Albon Pervisage because I don't really know much about him, so I can't really say whether I like it or not. But he's an unknown quantity. He just lost a fight like 3 days ago, and other than the fact that he has good hand speed and he was in camp with Joshua, I don't know anything about him. So I mean, I really can't say much about Mr. Albon Pervisage, but I guess I'll keep my eye out on him as his career progresses.
Ooh.
The fourth sparring partner, sounded out BT partner. The fourth sparring partner for Anthony Joshua in his preparation for Andy Ruiz Jr. is actually the one that I think is the most legitimate one out of all of them. And he comes in the form of Timothy Moten. Timothy Moten, a 5-0 heavyweight, 2 KOs, coming to you straight out of Louisville, Kentucky. You know, there was this one heavyweight named Muhammad Ali that came out of Louisville, Kentucky, and he wound up being pretty good. But Timothy Moten out of Louisville, Kentucky, he's 5-0 with 2 KOs. Not known as much of a big puncher, but I mean, the way he's built, he's a chubby fighter, being that he's got good hand speed, knows how to place his punches pretty good from what I can see on tape. He would probably be the guy that, of all of Anthony Joshua's 4 sparring partners that he's used, that I would say is the closest in terms of style to mimicking Andy Ruiz. And I don't know how he goes about sparring. I don't know if he has like, I don't know if he spars. I don't know if he does like 10 rounds and he just interchanges the sparring partners, or if he just goes 5 or 6 rounds a day. I don't know how he's going about it, but this is the guy that he needs to be sparring with as much as possible, because this is a fighter here that, you know, again, he's much like our boy Albon Pervisage, a bit of an unknown quantity, but he's someone that, you know, he's been in camp with other fighters that are known and world ranked. So he's less of an unknown quantity than Albon Pervisage, but he's also sparred with Lawrence Okoli, who obviously we know is very closely affiliated to Anthony Joshua. So he's got experience sparring longer, rangy fighters, which is good for Joshua because the fact that he's a shorter guy and he has experience sparring those kind of fighters, he can mimic the Ruiz style as much as possible, and that's going to help Joshua. So, I mean, sparring with Andrew Tabiti, sparring with Tom Little, Albon Pervisage, and guys like that, like, just, and this is me speaking from the outside looking in, I really don't see the point in sparring guys like that if you're getting ready for Andy Ruiz. This is the guy in Timothy Moten. Just looking at the tape, looking at the style, looking at the build, this is the guy you need to be working with. So I would say this is probably the best sparring partner he has for this camp is Timothy Moten. And, you know, shout out to him. Shout out to Timothy Moten. He's out here on the grind, doing his thing from Louisville, Kentucky, getting to how he lives. So yeah, hopefully he's giving Joshua some good work and helping him prepare, because he's really, really going to need it. Andy Ruiz Jr. is not going to be the same fighter he was on June the 1st, 2019 at Madison Square Garden. And that could be very detrimental to Anthony Joshua, which is why in his training camp, he has to make sure that he's getting the right preparation. Now, I understand for the first fight with Anthony Joshua, or for the first fight with Andy Ruiz, I should say, Anthony Joshua, he was a late replacement, so that can be a big, deal for a fighter when you get a guy like Jerome Miller, who's 300 pounds and is a volume puncher and fights way different than Andy Ruiz, has different challenges he's bringing into the ring, and then you get Andy Ruiz, who's a better fighter as a late replacement. It could be a big detriment to you, but he's going to be different for this fight, and I'm going to tell you why he's going to be different, because Andy Ruiz is already on record, he's already on record saying that he wants to lose 8 pounds. So he weighed in at 247 pounds for the first fight. He's trying to get down to 240. Now, what would an Andy Ruiz Jr. at 240 look like against Anthony Joshua? Well, you saw in the first fight how he was able to cut the distance. You saw how he was able to be in the right position to punch. And you saw how he was able to beat Anthony Joshua constantly to the spot, even when he was hurt. Ruiz, that is, when he was hurt. So a guy at 240, I feel like at 240 pounds, Andy Ruiz would be able to deal with anything Joshua presents to the table. If Joshua feels like he's going to out-jab Andy Ruiz and use that reach, then Andy Ruiz would have to have a less weight on him to go find him, and he knows that. He already knows it himself, and he's already on record saying himself that, look, he anticipates that Anthony Joshua is going to come into the ring on December the 7th, and he's going to run away from him. Try to use that size, try to stick that jab out. So I think Ruiz is going about everything the right way. He's getting some great sparring for this fight. I mean, I couldn't really find out if he was sparring anybody else, but the one sparring partner that most of us know he's sparring is Michael the Bounty Hunter, who's actually fighting on that undercard in the biggest fight of his career to date against Alexander Povetkin. So you get a guy like that, like Michael Hunter, who was one of the best amateurs in America in the last 10 to 15 years, who's very hungry, who's going to be very zoned in and locked in for his fight with Povetkin. And he's just more skilled. He's a lighter guy. Being that Ruiz is a heavier fighter, having to go in the ring and cut the distance and try to find a guy as fast as Michael Hunter is not an easy task to do, and it's going to help him in his preparation to dealing with a Joshua who's going to move around a lot more. So I like the adjustments that both fighters are trying to make. I would definitely say though that I like what Ruiz is doing just a bit more, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not really a fan of these sparring partners he's bringing in, because they don't really mimic the style. And from my opinion, this is my opinion. They're not like, with the exception of Timothy Moten, none of the sparring partners are like Andy Ruiz. None of them are like Andy Ruiz. Tom Little is not like Andy Ruiz. Alban Pervizaj is not like Andy Ruiz. Andrew Tabiti is definitely not like Andy Ruiz. So I just don't see. I really don't see how this is going to prepare him for Andy Ruiz Jr. And if he goes in the ring, if Anthony Joshua goes in that boxing ring and he turns in another dud of a performance against an Andy Ruiz Jr., then he's in big trouble. He's in big trouble. I really think he's going to look really horrible. And if he comes in that ring on December 7th and looks like crap and loses and gets destroyed and gets just folded up like a blue steel chair, like back in the day on WWE SmackDown when The Rock and Chris Jericho used to fold from steel chairs and just bash people over the head, shout out to them. If he gets folded up and destroyed like that again, then he's in big trouble. Anthony Joshua is in big trouble, and he needs to consider his whole team. He needs to consider everything that's going on over there in Sheffield, and all that stuff. Now, before I end the video, I want to say this, and I also wanted to point this out. I find it very hilarious how there was that rumor his last training camp that Joey DeWaco had beat the brakes off of him in sparring and gave him a concussion and all that stuff, and that's why Anthony Joshua wasn't so good on fight night. They didn't bring back Joey DeWaco for the sparring session, so the fact that they didn't bring him back tells me a lot, because Joey DeWaco would have been the perfect guy to bring back, because he would have been the kind of fighter like Evander Holyfield was telling you about. He would have been the kind of fighter that's going to go in there and come to whoop you. He would have been the kind of fighter that can mimic Andy Ruiz's style, a shorter, stockier, chubbier heavyweight with good craft and good skill. I would have went with him and Timothy Moten, and you could have just sparred those guys all day, and they would have given you all you needed. But now you're going to fight a guy, Andy Ruiz, who is going to be a lot harder to beat. He's more confident. He's got every reason to want to win this fight. He's sparring a killer in Michael Hunter for this fight. He's going to be a bit lighter, which I think is going to be to his benefit, because you already see the hand speed. You saw the hand speed with Andy Ruiz, and like Evander Holyfield even told me himself when I interviewed him earlier this year. I'll leave that guy's for you right over here. Evander Holyfield told me that Andy Ruiz had some of the fastest hands he had ever seen in the ring, whether it be in a fight or in sparring, you know, and that's saying a lot when you talk about Evander Holyfield. He's been there with some of the greatest fighters who ever lived in the heavyweight division. So that's just my look. I just wanted to highlight those sparring partners for you guys, for Anthony Joshua. Not really a fan of his camp, and I think he's in great danger of turning in another dud of a performance. So we'll go through it again. This camp he sparred with Tom Little, Andrew Tabiti, Alban Pervizash, and Timothy Moten. So you guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think about the sparring partners he's brought in. And yeah, just let me know in the comments down below. Take the time to subscribe, and like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Dania. So until next time, take care.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT. We're at the Davy Powell, and you're watching True School Sports.